Hey there everybody, today I'm going to be doing my labor and delivery story. Obviously by the title I have delivered my baby boy and it has just been so amazing this past week because today he is 1 week old, but by the time this gets up he'll probably be a little older than that. But anyways, I finally got the time to sit down and do this video because obviously I've been pretty occupied with just, learning how to be a mom and learning how to just cope with the changes, but I've been really enjoying it and I'm not exhausted yet, but I'm sure I'll get there. So if you're interested in watching this video, then please continue watching. If you saw my 39-week pregnancy update, you'll know that I started getting mild contractions on April 8th. It was like a Friday at night, and I went to the hospital and they checked me. I was still at a 4, which I had already been a 4, so I went home and I decided to labor at home. Well, that day, the contractions got way further apart. They were like 20 to 9 minutes apart. They were really inconsistent, but still pretty painful, and I just waited it out. And by the end of Saturday night, I started really getting hard ones, and they were between 5 to 3 minutes apart, and I waited it out until Jordan got home around 10 o'clock. At this point I really couldn't talk through them. I was just trying to breathe and just get through them, and I had Jordan timing them, and I was saying, if they become 4 to 3 minutes apart consistently for an hour, I'll go to the hospital, because I really didn't want to go to be checked again and not have progressed at all. So we did that, and after about an hour and a half they were consistent from 5 to 3 minutes apart. So we're like, okay, let's go. So we got my mom, we packed up the car all over again, and we went to the hospital. By the time we got to the hospital, they were still very, very painful, and we got to the labor and delivery area, and it was funny because one of the nurses on staff who had seen me there the previous night, who checked me and told me I was a 4, and then I told her I was just going to leave, she saw me come in again, and she was just like, oh, just admit her, because they didn't want me leaving again. So they immediately admitted me into a room before even checking me, and then they checked me after I had gotten the IV, which, let me tell you, I was so afraid of getting the IV, and it was extremely painful. They pricked me in one hand, and then they pricked me in the other one, and now, for the past week, I had this crazy, bruised vein, and I was like, wow, I really don't like IVs. Back to the story. So that same nurse came in, and she checked me, and I was still at a 4, and that was not very fun to hear, because I had already been going over 24 hours of these contractions, and they were, of course, they were just starting to get really painful, but it was I'm not progressing at all. They told me we're just going to monitor you and we're going to check you in the morning. So they had, me hooked up with all the fetal monitors, they had the IV in, and I was just literally so connected down to all of these machines, and it was not very easy to sleep because the contractions were so bad, and they were just every 5 to 3 minutes, but I still wasn't progressing. 7 o'clock, how the nurses change. Well, that nurse that had admitted me, she came in and checked me once before she left, and I was a 5, almost a 6. So that was awesome. I was good, we're getting somewhere. At this time, my contractions kind of felt like they were slowing down to almost 7 to 10 minutes apart, but they didn't say anything. Around 10 o'clock, I asked if I could walk around, and they said they're going to check with the doctor first, and eventually, the doctor said, okay, you can walk around for about 20 minutes before she got there. So I was all in my gown and whatnot, and I was walking around with this IV bag, and we walked around for about 15 minutes before my doctor came, and she was just like, okay, we're going to check you now. And I was like, oh, okay, so no more walking. Around this time that my doctor came and was going to check me, well, she did check me, is where I kind of feel my labor started to stray off into kind of something I really didn't want, especially being a hospital birth, but I'll explain that later. So as my doctor checked me, I was a 7, so I went you know, I was progressing very well, or at least that's what I thought, but she told me that I wasn't progressing fast enough, so she decided to break my water. So they broke my water around 11:30, and they saw that there was meconium in the amniotic fluid, so they said, you know, we're just going to let me labor a little bit longer to see if breaking my water would make the contractions pick up. And so we waited, and they literally waited only 30 minutes, and my contractions didn't pick up, and then they started Pitocin. And see, that's where I was kind of like, yeah, there's meconium in there, but I thought that they would wait maybe at least an hour, but they didn't, and they put Pitocin in, which, you know, what are you going to do? They said that the contractions were going to start to feel a little bit more intense in like 20-ish minutes. But let me tell you, literally, I swear, the next contraction that I had felt was so painful, I didn't know what to do with myself. And I was like, okay, I'm like 7 centimeters, I can do this without the epidural. I don't need it. And I just kept on going, and then I was like, just trying to breathe through it, but like literally the second contraction hit, and I was like, oh my god, I feel like I'm dying. And then like I felt one more, and I was like, okay, this is becoming really, really hard to just even manage. I was just like shaking, and I didn't know what to do. I asked to go to the bathroom, and when I stood up to go to the bathroom, I was like, the entire time I was breathing and just kind of moaning through it, but that one I literally full on was like screaming at this point, and I was like, I need the epidural, I can't do this. And this was literally in the span of like 10 minutes after getting Pitocin. They told me it'd be a little bit more about 20 minutes from now, so I was like, this is freaking crazy intense. I don't know how much they put in there. They said they put the lowest dosage, but that was crazy. So it took about 20 minutes for them to finally get the anesthesiologist to come, and she came and she was explaining how everything was going to work, and I was literally just not even listening, honestly. I was like, okay, I got it, let's do this, come on. Like, I was in so much pain. I couldn't even do anything. I was like so trying to just breathe, but like it almost felt like I couldn't breathe. Finally, they were getting everything set up. Jordan and my mom had to leave the room. They were telling me I'm going to feel like a slight little sting or whatever, but I swear the epidural felt like nothing compared to the contractions, because I'm a huge needle fear freak, and like I can't stand having shots. Like I said, the IV was awful, but it's like, seriously, a huge needle going in my back was nothing compared to the contractions I were feeling. 1:10, the epidural was in my back, and they told me I'll start to feel it in around 20 minutes. Around 5 minutes from then, the contractions became like a little less intense, but still very painful. I couldn't talk through it. I was still moaning, but not screaming anymore. So, and I can start feeling it like work on like one side of my body more, so they kind of like laid me on my side, and you know, after like 20 minutes, I was not completely numb. I still felt a lot of contractions in my back, because during my labor, I was actually having back labor as well, and I felt it a lot in my back, and it was much more painful than I really thought, but you know, I was getting through it. But I felt the contractions still on my back, and in the front was pretty much, I didn't feel it as much anymore, so it was so nice. I had spent the next hour just kind of resting and sleeping, just letting my body, you know, get some more energy for when it was time to push. Around 2:30, my doctor came in and checked me, and I was completely dilated, 10 centimeters, and I was like, wow, that worked really fast. And they didn't want me to push quite yet, so they wanted the baby to drop down a little more. So they had me kind of sit up more straight. They put like the bed reclined more upwards, and I just kind of sat there and let the baby drop. Around 3:50, they decided they were gonna have me start pushing, and they were, you know, bringing all their people in, because the NICU team had to be in there because there was meconium in the fluid, so they needed to check him right away. Around 3:50-ish, they had me start pushing, and I did a couple of practice pushes beforehand, but I did 2 contractions, or I pushed through 2 contractions, and they said that they could already see his head. He was coming down really, really quickly. They then did an episiotomy. It was just a 1st-degree cut, I pushed 3 more times and he was out by 4:04. So it was honestly a very quick delivery, but a fairly long labor, but I was really happy with how everything turned out. There's a couple things I would have changed, but you know, that's just how it happened to go. Once he was out, they did immediately take him to get checked because there was meconium in the fluid, so I didn't get to do skin to skin right away. But after he was checked, Jordan cut the cord and he stayed over there with them, and I was getting stitched up, and about 20 minutes later we did skin to skin, and it was really, really nice, and it was just an amazing moment that I really I didn't even know what to do. It was almost like surreal. I didn't even feel real in that moment, but it was crazy and it was amazing. So that is it for my labor and delivery story, and now I'm going to go get Nova. So this is Nova, and he just got up from his nap, so he's a little sleepy right now, but he's kind of looking for food. So this is my baby boy, Nova William. He was 7 pounds 14 ounces at birth, and he was 21 inches, and he has gotten so big. He is a fairly good baby. He does really good with feeding and sleeping, and he's just the sweetest little thing. And honestly, I don't think he could have been more perfect. So that is Nova. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. I would also love to have you as a subscriber if you're not already subscribed. And I will see you with more videos. Bye. Say bye, Nova.